I'm going to try beating every Super Nintendo game. We're going to be starting out with just the North American ones since I can't read Japanese and the PAL exclusives aren't super interesting. I'll be doing this all while streaming so you guys can watch it live. Don't expect it to end anytime soon though, since there are over 700 games in the library. Real Monsters. You guys remember that early 90s cartoon on Nickelodeon, right? If you don't, let me jog your memory. Developed by Klasky Csupo for Nickelodeon. Man, that's hard to say. Don't even know if I said it right. And premiering towards the end of 1994, Real Monsters follows the lives of three young monsters, Ickis, Oblina, and my personal favourite, Crumb. Nah, not that Crumb, this Crumb. The basic premise of the show is these guys attend a school for monsters in the sewers. They have to head to the surface every now and then to perform scares as a class assignment. I'm not here to talk about the cartoon today though, I'm here to talk about the Super Nintendo game. That's right, they made a game about this show, as they did for pretty much everything back in the early 90s. Released in August of 1995 on both Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, Real Monsters was developed by Real-Time Associates, known for their hit games such as Rugrats Scavenger Hunt, Beavis and Butthead, Barney's Hide and Seek, and Gex 64. Ugh, that's quite the repertoire. The game's soundtrack was composed by Real-Time Associates in-house composer Greg Turner. He didn't seem to have a very long career in video game composition from what I could find though, only spanning between 1994 and 2001. He started with Captain America and the Avengers on the Game Gear, and his last credit was for All-Star Baseball 2001. In saying that though, I personally think that he did a great job on this soundtrack. It's fun, bouncy, the songs do get stuck in your head from time to time. You should probably give it a quick listen. In saying that though, the songs are pretty short and a bit repetitive, so it's only entertaining for a little while before it gets a bit annoying. Now I really did try to find some information about the development of this game. Any little known facts or behind the scenes information. I scoured the internet for anything I could find. I came up empty-handed unfortunately. I guess this is just one of those licensed games that got made quickly and was forgotten about just as quickly. But why is that? Well, let's talk a bit about the game, shall we? Spanning over 25 levels and 5 worlds, Real Monsters is your typical Super Nintendo platformer, but it's got a slight twist. You can switch between 3 different monsters, each with their own special abilities. While playing as Ickis, you can team up with the other monsters to throw him a long distance, almost like a long jump. It's very hard to aim though. Oblina can reach high places with the help of the other two lifting her on top of them. Crumb, well, he can throw his eyeball to see further into the level. That might sound kinda handy, but I don't think I've ever actually used this intentionally during my playthrough. Each world starts out with a sewer level before they head to the surface, where it follows a specific theme. This makes sense when you think about it. The monsters have just been at school, in the sewers, and they've been given their assignment where they need to head off to the surface to perform their scare and get a grade. So each level has a specific item that the Grumble instructs you to grab before reaching the exit. Who's the Grumble, you may ask? Well, this sexy beast. Alright, so how did I go beating Real Monsters? We started out by blindly pushing buttons to figure out what moves we had. I thought I'd just play the whole game as Crumb since he's my favourite, but it turns out Crumb's almost entirely useless in this game. That's a bit unfortunate. The controls are pretty rough in Real Monsters. I found myself really often trying to throw trash at an enemy and just missing entirely. This led to taking a lot of damage as rats just walk up and take a bite out of you. The camera wasn't much more kind than the controls. Flying around erratically, it became very disorientating very fast. A little word of advice, avoid the geese. These honkers will take you down fast. Is that a goose? Are you honking at me, motherfucker? So about 15 minutes into the run, and only on the second level, I ran into possibly the worst section of this entire game. The fans! Basically, you need to jump into these fans, which will push you up into another fan on the opposite side of the tunnel. It sounds pretty simple, right? The problem with this is that the floaty controls on the fan are just the worst. Like, this section needed me to climb up about 6 or 7 fans without falling. If I fell, I got nibbled on by a goose. This may not sound so bad, not the goose nibbling, but there was no consistency in the fan physics. Every time I thought I had it figured out, I'd just mess it up and fall back down into the clutches of the goose. After about the most painful 5 minutes I've ever endured, I made it to the top of this tunnel from hell before promptly panicking and dying to a bunch of spikes. Luckily, I did reach a checkpoint. After a grueling 22 minutes, I was 2 levels down, only 23 to go. Level 3 finds you outside the sewers finally, and into a school gymnasium filled with traffic cones, trampolines, volleyballs, and annoying children. Also a chance to check out Crumb's ass whenever he shimmies along pipes or climbs ladders. I found myself getting lost many times in this level, having to blindly climb around on the ladders while being relentlessly bombarded by enemies that you can't even see. 2 of the major problems in this game. It's so easy to get lost with not a lot of direction. It's never a simple left to right or bottom to top. You need to go all over the place, backwards and forwards, and the other thing is the enemies will hit you before they've even appeared on screen. It constantly leads to you taking unavoidable damage. I made it through a couple more very painful school levels before I made it to the last level of this world, which wasn't much different from the rest, except that you need to complete your school assignment in this level. You have to scare the hair off the teachers before you can finish the level. And at 51 minutes we had made it through the first world with a score of 5 cockroaches, the best score you can get in a world. The next world started out with another frustratingly difficult sewer level before we headed to the post office on the surface. This was the first level that really made me consider quitting this entirely. It was beyond frustrating. There's one section in which you need to climb a bunch of post boxes that pop in and out, kind of like moving platforms. The jumps are so precise, even the tiniest misstep and you'll fall back to the bottom and need to start again. After about 10 minutes of struggling and really wanting to cry, I decided to try a different character. I tried Crumb, and that was a bad idea. So then I tried Ickis. Turns out, that was a smart move. I'm not entirely sure it's possible to complete this section with anyone but Ickis. It wasn't about to make this easy for me, however. I still struggled for about another 5 minutes before I managed to get out of this hellish section of the level. How the hell you get on there? Ah! I'm genuinely getting mad now. This is ridiculous. Ah! I'm no longer having fun. Ruined the whole game, Aaahh monsters. This one section has ruined it. We started off stream number 2 going through a couple more levels in the post office with nothing much of note happening really. That was until we made it to the boss of the world. I think she may have been the boss of the post office. This lovely lady pelts boxes at you as you try and hit switches. The switches are there to change the direction of the 2 conveyor belts. You need to try and get the boxes to drop onto her head to cause damage. After a rough first go of the boss fight, I did figure out what I needed to do and I managed to get the hang of it, only dying one more time. As usual, the next level is a bonus game, and as usual, I messed it up immediately. As expected, the next level was back to the sewers. It was a basic sewer level with nothing exciting happening really. Are you seeing a pattern? Not much exciting happens in this game. Next up, we're off to the museum. This level introduced some tiny pterodactyls. They drop eggs on you and they are such a pain. They are so hard to dodge. These museum levels are all about climbing up dinosaur skeletons to make your way to the exit. I found out the hard way that the spines and the skeletons, as well as the teeth on some of them, will do damage to you if you touch them. There's no warning of any sort that would make you think you can't touch them. It's just how the game rolls, I guess. There was one section of this level that took what felt like an eternity to get through. You need to get a crane to pick you up and then you jump to another platform right before the crane drops you. It may not sound hard, but the timing is super precise and it took me a really long time to figure out what to even do. Meanwhile, if you mess this up and you fall down, there's this terrifying creature that spits crap at you. I ended up dying here more than once because I couldn't get the timing down and the spitting dude just kept taking me out. Eventually though, I made it past this nightmare and the rest of the level was a piece of cake. The next level was a whole lot more of the same. I had a lot less trouble with this than the last though. The only real change in this level was the introduction of oil pits. These are big insta-kill pits throughout the level that you can't fall in or you die. Above them are continuous strips of oil that'll hurt you if you run into them, meaning you need to time it well to get past them or you might take some damage or even get knocked back into the oil pits. At the end of this level is the boss of the museum world, the security guard. I was really confused at the start of this fight. He was just flinging bananas at me constantly and I couldn't figure out what to do. There was a switch on the floor in the middle of the room that turned the lights off except for this one little area that stayed lit up by a spotlight. I realised that you need to stand in the light to scare the security guard to damage him. Once I figured out how to beat him, it was pretty easy. I did take a bunch of damage, but I had enough health to outlive him, and off to the next world we went. Back to the sewers. It was probably the easiest sewer level actually. Considering it's the second to last one, that surprised me a bit. I flew through this one pretty quickly, only dying once to a water pit that I couldn't see coming. After that, we headed to the shopping mall. In this level, you need to watch out for falling coconuts, for some reason, while avoiding children who are trying to hit you with spitballs, slingshots, and remote control aeroplanes. These dive bomb you, they're the worst. You need to try and dodge them to get past and take out the kid with the controls. This level wasn't too bad to get through though, really. Next up was the cinema, a really cool level actually. There's a bunch of ladders and scaffolding you need to climb up outside the cinema for some reason. I don't really know why, didn't make a lot of sense. Moving on. But in the background there are a bunch of signs, these advertised movies that are playing in the cinema. They're all puns of real movies but based on monsters. Thinking about it now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense since this is the human world cinema, not the monster world cinema. So why are all the movies based on monsters? I don't know, it was entertaining reading them anyway. I spent a while looking at them all. This is where the trouble really started for me though. I was on my last life when I started this level. No continues left. This means I needed to complete the rest of the game without losing another life. Unless I could find some 1-ups, that is. I made it about halfway through the level before I died to a falling letter E. I reloaded my save state back to the start of the level and I tried again. Somehow this time I managed to get through the level without dying. I guess it's because I knew where the enemies were going to be. I still only had 1 hit point left when I finished the level though, which was going to be an issue. I started the next level back in the mall with 1 hit and I was immediately killed by a kid with a water balloon. I was pissed. What could I do? I had to beat the rest of the game without taking a hit? At least until I collected some health, but was that even going to be possible in this game? It's so unforgiving. I tried this for about another 25 minutes before I got fed up. There was no way I was going to be able to do this. I couldn't even finish this one level without taking a hit, let alone the rest of the game. So I did the only thing I could think of doing. Off to the internet to search for some cheat codes. I found a level select cheat code that you could enter at the start screen. Or so I thought. I tried for a good 5 minutes over and over again, wondering if I was just entering it too slow or something. After a while it was pretty clear this wasn't going to work, so back to the internet I went. I found some Game Shark codes which luckily work with the emulator I'm using to play these games. I put in the code for 50 lives and I tested it out on a new game. Yep, looks like it worked. It didn't say I had 50 lives, but there was like a picture of a fishing rod or something, and when I died it didn't change, so I think it worked. Looks like we're back in business. I loaded my save state back up after putting in the Game Shark code, and it didn't work. For some reason it wouldn't accept the code at this point in the game. Was I really going to have to start this all over again? I'd been playing for over 3 hours. That may not sound like that long, but goddamn, this game is a grind and I couldn't bear the thought of playing another 3 to 4 hours of it. I decided if I'm going to cheat, I'm really going to cheat. I chucked in the Game Shark code for infinite health and I just continued on. For some reason that code worked with my save state, but the lives one didn't. I don't really know why. I blasted my way through this level with invincibility. I took out the boss at the end, the karate instructor. I think she would have been a pain in the ass to beat without invincibility. I got hit so many times, I just couldn't dodge her. I was under the impression that was meant to be the final level, but it turns out I'd just been reading a walkthrough that was incomplete. They'd given up writing it for some reason, so I was disappointed to say the least. I didn't want to keep playing the game with invincibility on, that just seemed pointless, so I went back to the internet in hopes of finding something else that could get me through this without completely ruining the experience. That's when I came across the infinite lives cheat, rather than the 50 lives cheat. It was a long shot, but I thought, let's try it, see what happens. To my surprise, it worked. I had 1 life left, I purposely died, and when I came back, I still had 1 life left. Success! We can keep playing. This final sewer level felt like a bit of a maze. There were tunnels you could slide down, and you needed to jump out of them just the right time, or you'd fall back to the start of the level. Multiple times I had to run back through the whole level as I jumped at the wrong bit or I just missed the jump entirely. I was so fed up by this point, it felt like the game was just mocking me. Eventually I got through it though. Finally, we're onto the last world. Simon's house. Yeah, that's right, Simon's house. Simon is a monster hunter. He's one of the main antagonists of the Are Real Monsters cartoon. His house is full of monster hunting gadgets and cryptid memorabilia. The first thing you see when you start the level is a Loch Ness monster poster on his wall. These levels were tough. Stuff was constantly jumping out at me from nowhere. It also has this really annoying trait from older games where obstacles just look like part of the background. Sometimes I get stuck for ages just because I didn't know I could jump on something. It looked like part of the background to me. One part in particular had me stuck for way too long. There are these pegs on a line that you're meant to grab onto to get across to the ledge. However, this is the first time in the game that there's been anything like these. I had no idea you needed to push a button to grab them as you got close. Like, there was no way for me to know this. Adding these in right at the end of the game just felt like poor design. How was I meant to know you needed to push a button to grab them? It was driving me mad. Even once I figured out you could grab them, it was still damn near impossible to get all the way across. You had like half a second from when you grabbed them before you had to jump to the next one or you'd fall back down. It was so hard, I just couldn't get the timing right. After a good 10 minutes or more, I finally made it across to the next part of the level. After a grueling 30 plus minutes on this one level, I finally made it to the end. I had made it to the final boss fight with Simon Hunter, the Monster Hunter. This was no easy boss fight. The hint text said scare him when his goggles are off. Easier said than done. He was shanking me left, right and center with this pitchfork. He was just so fast. If I hesitated for even a millisecond, he was going to get me. So there were two switches, one on either side of the room. If you hit the switch, the lights would go off. That didn't seem to be what would cause him to take his goggles off though, from what I could tell. When you got to the switch, he'd always be there right behind you. I thought I could jump over him maybe in order to get back to the other switch, but nah. If I jumped over him, he was just going to stab me in midair. I died before I even had a clue what to do. I was ready for this game to be over. I was done. By some miracle, I did figure out what to do eventually. I needed to quickly flick the light on and off, and then you had about half a second to turn around and scare him before he became invulnerable again. Like, there was no room for error whatsoever here. After I figured that out, I immediately died. If it hadn't been for the infinite lives cheat, I would never have completed this bullshit game. But now I knew how to kill him, so I'd be fine, right? No. I did die a bunch more times. Eventually though, after playing this game for nearly 4.5 hours, I did it. I defeated Simon and I completed this damn game. Fuck me. Oh, petite scab scratches. So what do you get for completing the game? A lovely certificate from the Grumble. Him telling you to beat the game on hard mode, and that's about it. Yeah. Get fucked. I'm never playing this game again, especially not on hard mode. If I had a physical copy, I think I would have burnt it by this point just out of pure frustration. With that out of the way though, let's get on with the review. I think it's pretty clear how I feel about this game. I don't like it. Not one bit. The enemies jump out at you from nowhere, giving you no time to react. There's a bunch of blind jumps you need to make that if you miss lead to your death. If you run out of continues, you have to start the entire game again. The bosses are cheap and bullshit with their damage. The graphics are pretty ugly. In saying that though, there are some redeeming factors. I guess, well, the music is good in some levels. Like, not good as in good, but like, I found myself humming the tunes for days afterwards. It could have just been because they're short loops. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's not really a good feature either. Never mind. I don't really recommend you play this game. Even if you love platformers and are real monsters like I do, it's just not worth your time. Play something better. So, on to the ratings. For gameplay, I give this a 3.5 out of 10. The controls are just okay. The special moves that the monsters use are not very intuitive, and I found myself very often missing platforms in ways that just didn't feel fair. The general gameplay loop of big levels that you can go in any direction in really annoyed me. Often I found myself getting lost in a level just going backwards and forwards, hoping I was heading in the right direction. Like I said many times, the enemies are unforgiving in a bad way. They're relentless and near impossible to dodge, damage almost always feels unfair, and they're really hard to hit. So for music, I'll give this a 4.5 out of 10. Like I said, some of the music was kinda catchy. It wasn't grating or anything, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't good. It didn't really ever feel like it fit the vibe of the levels all that well, and the loops were really short, so you heard the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over as you died many times. It got annoying really fast. The graphics, I'd say it's about a 4.5 out of 10. They're not bad, they're just not good. They have this kind of sketchy look, everything's a little bit wonky. kind of similar to the cartoon. I think that's what they were going for, but it just didn't transfer over to the Super Nintendo very well. It just looked average. Average at best. Overall, I give this game a 4 out of 10. It's in my do not recommend pile. Don't play this game. Pretty much the whole time I was playing it, I was just itching for it to be over so I could play the next game. It felt like a chore to play. It wasn't fun. Thank you all so much for watching this video though. I hope you enjoyed the video more than I enjoyed playing the game. Sorry there's been such a long time between videos. I've had a lot going on, but I think I can start getting them out regularly again now. I'm really enjoying making them, and I hope you're enjoying watching them. If you like the video, please consider leaving it a like. You know it helps out the channel. You know I have to ask this, and if you want to see more of the series, it would be great if you could subscribe to the channel. I hope to see you all again in the next episode, and until then, have a great life.